The escape pod's emergency beacon had been silent for 3 cycles when Commander Kala finally traced the faint energy signature to the desolate moon of Phyros. Her ship's scanners detected the wreckage scattered across a crater that stretched for kilometers, metal fragments glinting like stars against the gray dust. She landed her fighter nearby and stepped out into the thin atmosphere, her combat suit systems automatically adjusting to the hostile environment. The human had been running for 2 standard years now, ever since the incident at the Nexus station. Kala had been tracking him across 17 systems, following a trail of destroyed mercenary ships, liberated slave colonies, and confused admirals who couldn't explain how a single human had outsmarted their entire fleets. The Galactic Council had placed the highest bounty in recorded history on his head, but Kala wasn't here for the credits. She found him sitting against a twisted piece of hull plating, his environmental suit torn but still functioning. Blood had dried on his forehead where shrapnel had cut through his helmet's visor. He looked up as her shadow fell across him, and those strange human eyes showed no surprise, only weary acceptance. "I've searched the galaxy for you, human," Kala said, her translator converting her words into his primitive language. The human smiled, a gesture that still unsettled most species, even after decades of contact. "Hello, Kala. I was wondering when you'd catch up." She had first encountered him during the siege of Kepler Station, where her battalion had been tasked with eliminating a human research facility. The Council had declared humanity too dangerous to exist after their scientists had somehow managed to crack the quantum encryption that protected galactic communications. The humans had to be eliminated before they could share their discovery with the other younger species. But when Kala's forces had breached the station, they found only one human remaining. He had refused to evacuate with the others, instead staying behind to ensure their escape pods reached friendly territory. He had fought her entire squad single-handedly, not with superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but with something the galaxy had never seen before in combat: pure, stubborn determination to protect others at any cost. Her warriors had been trained from birth for war, genetically enhanced and equipped with the finest weapons the Empire could provide. Yet this one human had held them off for 6 hours using improvised traps, environmental hazards, and an uncanny ability to predict their tactics. When her soldiers finally cornered him, he had looked her directly in the eyes and spoken words that had haunted her ever since. "You can kill me, but you can't kill what I represent. Humans don't fight because we're the strongest or the smartest. We fight because giving up isn't in our nature." She had been ordered to execute him immediately, but something had stopped her trigger finger. Perhaps it was the way he had stood defiant, even while wounded and surrounded. Perhaps it was the realization that in all her years of conquest, she had never met a being who fought not for glory or survival, but for others who weren't even there to see his sacrifice. Instead of killing him, she had helped him escape. It was a decision that had cost her everything: her rank, her honor, her place in society. She had been stripped of command and marked as a traitor, forced to flee into the outer systems, where she had spent months trying to understand why she had spared the life of her enemy. The answer had come when reports began filtering through the underground networks. The human hadn't disappeared into hiding as expected. Instead, he had begun liberating slave worlds, freeing entire populations from the mining colonies and agricultural planets where the Council harvested cheap labor from conquered species. He never asked for payment or recognition, never demanded territory or resources in return. He simply moved from system to system, breaking chains and giving hope to beings who had forgotten they deserved freedom. Each liberation had been a masterpiece of tactical planning and execution. He would infiltrate the facilities using captured uniforms and forged credentials, then systematically disable security systems and communication arrays. By the time the guards realized what was happening, the slaves were already boarding transport. Ships he had somehow acquired and retrofitted for refugee operations. The Council had sent entire battle fleets to stop him, but the humans seemed to anticipate their every move. He would strike at facilities they thought were secret, appear in systems they believed were secure, and vanish before their forces could respond. It was as if he could read their minds, predict their strategies before they had even formed them. Kala had realized the truth during her own pursuit. The human wasn't psychic or blessed with supernatural abilities. He was simply better at understanding his enemies than they were at understanding themselves. He studied their culture, their history, their psychology, and he used that knowledge to stay 3 steps ahead of every trap they set. Now, sitting in the wreckage of his final escape, he looked older than his species' relatively short lifespan should have allowed. The weight of carrying hope for an entire galaxy had taken its toll, but his eyes still held that unmistakable spark of defiance that had first captured her attention. "Why did you do it?" she asked, settling down beside him. "You could have lived quietly on some frontier world. No one would have found you." He was quiet for a long moment, watching the twin suns of Thyros rise over the horizon. Because someone had to. Because if we don't stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, then what's the point of being strong enough to fight in the first place? Kala understood then why she had searched for him across countless worlds. It wasn't to claim the bounty or to prove her worth to the Council. It was because in a galaxy full of predators and prey, she had found something else entirely. A being who chose to be a protector, not because it was profitable or safe, but because it was right. "The Council's fleets are 3 days behind me," she said. "They'll glass this entire system if they have to." The human nodded slowly. "Then I guess we'd better get moving. Those refugee ships won't escort themselves to the outer rim." As they worked together to repair his damaged fighter, Kala realized that the galaxy's greatest threat wasn't human technology or human intelligence. It was human hope and the way it spread to every species they encountered. She had spent her life as a weapon of empire, but now she had found something worth protecting instead of destroying. The stars awaited, and there were still chains to break.